Hey everyone, Pastor George here with today's Bible study recap. And today in Bible study, we did chapters 27 and 28 of the book of Job. And this is continuing Job's final series of monologues here. And these two chapters are kind of helping Job to wrap up his final arguments here. So one of the things that Job is focusing on first is wickedness. And so last time we were here, right, we talked about Job's insistence in God's sovereignty. And in what he's saying here, we see Job actually sound a lot like his friends, especially in chapter 27, right? So if you take the things that he says, you'll see that it sounds a lot like the things that his friends have been saying. And it's kind of weird because Job usually doesn't take these types of stances, but it's very clear from the book that this is supposed to be Job who is speaking, right? So what do we make of this? Well, Job is in this passage is telling what becomes of the wicked, right? And he again asserts that he is not one of the wicked, right? He is righteous. But as some people in our Bible study pointed out, the things that he says here about the wicked are things that apply to his life, or at least things that are kind of close to what happened to him. And now you're thinking like his friends, right? You're seeing exactly, well, if this is what's supposed to happen to the wicked and this happened to you, then that must mean you're wicked, right? That's kind of the idea that, this can conjure up. But the important thing to remember is Job is affirming exactly what his friends are saying. He's like, yeah, you know what? In most cases, this is how it works. God punishes the wicked. This is what it looks like. But that's not the case for me, right? That hasn't happened to me because I'm righteous. And no matter what you say, I know what I know. My conscience is clear. I haven't done anything wrong. And so he pushes his friends here, but he's saying, I agree with you. I agree that wickedness is punished, that God doesn't holds up the righteous, and then he goes after the wicked, right? And he talks about all the different ways that happens, whether it's through taking away their things or the children dying or natural disasters, stuff like that, right? So he affirms that, and then he says, but that's not me. So he moves from that to chapter 28. And I went around the room and looked actually during Bible study to see everyone's different translations of the Bible, because depending not only on your translation, but also the layout, what the editors chose here, can either get this point across or not. But if you look at your Bible, you might see a difference in the way that it is put on the page between 28 and 27. So the way things are arranged on the actual page. And 28 they do this because Job kind of shifts formats here in his poetry. Because remember, the whole book of Job is a poem, right? It's like kind of an epic poem, if you want to call it that, of a debate between Job and his friends. And it switches in style here in 28 to what is usually called wisdom literature, right? And there's lots of different types of wisdom literature, so that doesn't really narrow it down. But what I'm thinking specifically of here is Proverbs, right? So if you look at 28 and you compare it to the way Proverbs looks in your Bible, hopefully you'll see a similarity between the two, or at least if the editors had space to make a similarity, hopefully they did so, because this looks a lot more like Proverbs. And just like Proverbs is really concerned with wisdom, right? What is wisdom? How do you get it? How do you seek after it? Things like that, right? And it actually has very similar upshot to something that's found exactly in Proverbs at the very end. And so Job here is comparing searching for wisdom, right? Something that the wicked do not do, to looking for fine jewels, right? Underground, so mining. And so you dig down, you go into the darkness, and you're able to find these fine jewels, right? And he says that's what it's like looking for wisdom. And we can look for wisdom in all other sorts of places, right? We can look for it in the land of the living. It's not going to be there. We can look for it in the seas, in the deep oceans, right? It's not going to be there. We can look for it in the skies. It's not there. We can look for it to the dead, right? We can seek the dead out and see if they have wisdom, and they only have a whisper of it, right? A rumor of it. They don't even understand it fully. Who's the only one who can understand it fully? God, right? God is the only one who can understand it fully. Why? Because, he created everything, right? He's the one who sees everything, and ultimately he's the one who knows and dictates wisdom. And this is at the very heart of the religious idea, basically shared even outside of Christianity with all types of religions, right? Is that humans are the ones who receive wisdom from the divine, and we're the ones who are supposed to live that out, right? And understand it because we get that knowledge. So, with all that being said, Job's point here is that what is this wisdom? Well, the wisdom that God gives us is to fear the Lord, right? That's the beginning of understanding, and that's right in Proverbs as well. And to turn away from evil, right? So that's what wise people are supposed to do. And Job, in saying this, is saying, listen, this is what I've done my whole life, and this is good advice, right? Job is the one who's giving it, but there's still something kind of fishy and wrong that's happening, right? Or at least he that's how he sees it from his perspective. So that's where we left off for today. But the thing I want to think about, or I wanted people to think about, is when we think of Job saying these things, right? That saying that the phrase, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of the beginning of wisdom, and to turn away from evil is understanding that. Do we really see that as precious as gold or silver or topaz or whatever, sapphires, lapis lazuli? Do we actually see it as valuable as that or not? And I think a lot of us do not see it as valuable as that, right? Because it's something we're so easily able to access through the Bible or through church, whereas all these other things are hard to get. But I think that we usually don't understand how hard it is to actually come to understandings about wisdom, right? You can hear something repeated over and over and over, right? And it isn't until it actually matters to your life that you're like, wow, that's actually something really wise, and I should have listened to it, but I didn't, and now I realize that that's the case, right? That's like a lot of growing up, a lot of just life in general is understanding that, right? And then you think about, man, if only I knew that when I was this age, then I wouldn't have made that X and X, Y mistake, right? And I think that that's kind of what it's getting at here. And so I think the prayer, or something to think about, is where can we push ourselves to see God's wisdom in that way? And that's where we'll pick up, or we'll not pick up there, but that's something to leave us with until we get to our continuing of Job's monologues next week. So hope you guys have a good rest of your Wednesday, and I'll see you tomorrow for our mailbag. Peace out.